Okay, I think we want to get started at this point. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. This is the webinar for 3 hot trends for marketers and manufacturing. We're going to cover enterprise search, product information management, and personalization. Those presentations will be given individually by Bluebolt, InRiver, and Episerver. We really appreciate your time, and we'll make sure that this is a useful event for you guys. So let's just get started. My name is Chris Reisner. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Bluebolt. I'm also a co-founder, and I will be your moderator today. Jason LaShawn is the Chief Solutions Officer at Bluebolt, and he will talk about why search is critical and walk through what is changing with search and how it's changing over time. Carol Moriello at InRiver is the Partner Manager at North America. He's going to talk about what Product Information Management, or PIM, is and why it's important today. Just Anovic is the Head of Product Strategy at Episerver, and he'll discuss how technology is helping make personalization possible or where it can be useful. So just from an agenda perspective, Jason's going to cover enterprise search discussion first. Carol at InRiver will talk about product information management. Justin will talk about personalization. We'll have some time for questions and answers toward the end, and then we'll wrap up with how and when to learn more about each one of these topics. Just as a housekeeping thing, you can ask questions at any point in time in the go-to menu bar, and we'll cover them at the end as we get to them. So just feel free to put them in there, and we'll loop back around with them. We wanted to chat a little bit and take a moment to briefly explain how all of these topics relate to each other and why we are presenting them together. And essentially that's because enterprise search helps users, it's all about revenue generation. And enterprise search helps users find products so that they can more purchases and drive revenue. PIM is all about managing product data and helping people get the right information while they're in the purchase process so that they can make a confident decision on purchases and drive sales. And personalization is all about customizing the presentation for each user to help build a relationship and increase conversions and drive revenue. So you'll see this as a theme as you go through the entire presentation. So we're going to start with Jason and talk about enterprise search, but the first thing I want to do is have a poll question. And then our first question is on what % of site visitors go directly to the search. So if you could just answer what you think the answer is, what the proper answer is. We'll give you about a minute, and then I'll close the poll.
All right, I think maybe that's enough time for everyone to have answered. This is Jason LaShawn speaking. I'm from Bluebolt. I'll be discussing enterprise search today, and there are. Whoops.
They're the results. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, everybody, the majority of 33% of people chose 58%.
Okay. Wow. All right. So you should see my screen right now. The correct answer was 43%. So for the majority of our attendees, it looks like you all think that search is even perhaps more important than some of the statistics say that it is. But in either case, we're hovering around 50% is what users are doing. 50% of site visitors will go directly to the search box when they visit a website. So I like to think about, well, what are the implications of that? Why is that? What does that mean? So half the visitors coming to websites are going directly to the search box. What that means to me is it tells me that users don't want to spend the time to figure out your menu. We've all been trained by Amazon and certainly by Google that we can just start typing what it is where we want, and the results will come to us. We don't have to spend time navigating and thinking about some website's taxonomy in order to actually start finding things. Let's talk about Google in particular and what they're doing, because they're always leading the way, and whatever they're doing today is what we are all going to start needing to do tomorrow. So let's think about when 5 years ago, say, if you were to go to Google and search for weather, they're going to give you a list of links. They're going to link out to weather.com, WeatherBug, your local weather station, etc. Today, what they're going to do is bring the weather right to you. You're not going to have to link out and go visit some other website or figure out, guess which website might have the best weather. Google's just going to show you the weather, bring you the answers that you look for. Likewise, if you ask it a question, it's not going to just give you a list of links. It oftentimes will just show you answers right here, step-by-step answers in this case. So users are all being trained that they can expect if they type in a search query, they're not just going to get a list of links anymore, they're going to get answers. And so this is, in my mind, what we all have to strive to achieve. I dare say that probably none of our websites work like this today, but this is what we have to aim for, and this is what we need to try and achieve in the future. So let's think about, well, what happens then when our search doesn't live up to expectations? The statistics say that we're going to get abandon rates of close to 80%. Some 80% of visitors will abandon your site if the search functionality is poor. It's obviously catastrophic, and it's something that any one of us would want to correct. I also don't think this is a surprise. We've known that search is important for a long time, really since the internet's been around. I remember conversations back in the year 2000 and consulting with folks that people knew search was critical. Yet, despite the fact that search is important and that we all know it's important, still too many sites fail at it. And so that leads to the question of, well, why are they failing? What's the problem here? I think it comes down to one simple thing. I mean, at the base of it, search is difficult. And there isn't just a one-size solution. So it would be one thing if a company could go plop down a pile of money for a search engine, plug it in, and tomorrow they have a new search. Most companies would do that. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Everyone's got unique content. Everyone's users have unique goals. You've got a particular taxonomy that applies to your organization. All of these things come together and mean that your search implementation has to be specific to your website. Furthermore, the same folks that built your website, whether it's your internal team or an external vendor, more than likely they don't have search expertise on staff. And it does require a particular skill set to see that search is done properly. So more than likely you're going to need a specific search partner to get an effective enterprise search. Looking even more particularly at the industrial sector, manufacturing, or distributors within that sector, there are some unique challenges for that group in regards to search. And I think that it comes down to two specific kinds of content that need a slightly different approaches for search that need to be handled on the same website. And we're going to look at each one of these in turn here. The first is product content, and then there's everything else, the non-product content. Non-product content, that includes data sheets, it includes brochures, HTML, videos, imagery, etc. Looking at product content, what often is the best solution there is some sort of parametric filtering search. I'm going to jump over here to a screenshot from Mauser, which has a pretty good parametric search. So at this state that I'm showing you right here, we've already established that I'm searching for products. I'm searching for something called RF adapter, and I've given a whole series of different filters that would allow me to sort of narrow down my product list. Now, I would hasten to add that this would be a horrible interface for a consumer product. However, this is ideal if your audience is engineers. This allows engineers who know specifically what polarity they might need and frequency range and impedance. They can dial in to the specific product or sorts of products that they need for their given engineering application. So this is, I think, an ideal solution for a product set for manufacturing with an engineering audience. And I want to also note where this kind of ties into some of the other topics that we're going to be getting today. So in order to have all this content presented in your search, all of the different attributes for every product have to be filled in and has to be exported into your search engine. PIM is ideal for this sort of scenario, product information management, and that's our next topic. So you have to have all that content established and properly collated, if you will, in order to have it be effectively presented in search. So keep that in mind for the next topic. Now turning to the other kind of content that you might have on your website, the non-product content. the approach needs to be slightly different. You still want filters, but they're going to be more linguistic in nature. And the search engine itself has to be concerned with language handling. Things like pluralization, stemming, synonyms all come into play when you're talking about non-product content. And in this area, it kind of ties into the other topic for today, personalization. So imagine, if you will, that you know that the person performing the search is an engineer. In that case, you might want to push your data sheets and other technical information to the top of your search relevancy. On the other hand, if it's a marketing person that's sitting at the computer searching for your information, they're going to be more interested in things like brochures and sell sheets. So you can make that information more relevant to those users. So this is where all the things we're talking about today kind of tie together to one complete solution. So I'm going to wrap up. I think coming to the end of my part of the presentation here, a couple of things I want to leave you with. I think the most important thing to know, to recognize, is that there are no off-the-shelf solutions for search that simply can be plugged into your website to be effective. Sure, there are a lot of different search engines that you can look at, but every single one of them, if they're going to work properly for you, needs to be custom fit. More than likely with the help of a search partner that's got expertise in this area. And that wraps up my presentation today. We're going to pass over to Carol, who's going to talk about PIM, Product Information Management. But I think first, Chris is going to run a poll. So I'll pass the time back to Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. Great presentation. Thank you. So the next question is, what's the main reason for visiting a manufacturer's website? And I'll give some time for everybody to fill that out. Okay, looks like we got about everybody in. So, and pretty much everybody said to get product information like model, price, color, and size, which makes sense. So I'll hand it over to Carol at this point.
Hey, thanks, Chris.
Yep.
So, well, you're all right then. So Forrester actually done a bit of research in the last few years on consumer behavior, and one of their polls was asking that exact same question to thousands of consumers. What information were you looking for when visiting a manufacturer's website? And so the response was over 66% was regarding product information. They were looking for product information versus only about 10% to get product support and 22% to find rebates or coupons, things like that. So I guess this tells us, and kind of starts off my section of the presentation today, with just the fact that consumers have high expectations when they're visiting a manufacturer's website. And those expectations, a lot of the time, comes around the product information that they're looking for. So a little quick background before I begin. I work at a company called InRiver. InRiver is a software company focused on PIM, or Product Information Management. And for those of you who may not know what a PIM is, it's basically software that businesses use when they're selling their products. It's like a CRM system, but instead of customer information, it's product information. So a lot of times it's for manufacturers or retailers that are selling a lot of products, and they need a system in which they can store and manage all of that information. And at InRiver, we have a tagline, every product tells a story, which you see here. But we, in thinking about this, it's a great tagline, but we decided to change it to every product must tell a story. Otherwise, you're not going to sell that product. I mean, it has to have great information and images and quality information in order for those consumers to get what they're demanding, which is, they're looking for that product information. So it must tell that story that's needed in order for the consumers to get what they need and what they're looking for. So Jason touched on, search, and I'm not going to go into detail about that, but I did want to just briefly talk a little bit about the customer buying journey, and how it all starts with search. So we believe, there's 3 pillars to SEO. By having, you need to have structured information, you need to have high quality information, and it needs to be unique. And you only have a few clicks to get through to site navigation and on-site search. So it's very important that that you have that high structured, high quality, unique information in order to get that. And all of that is based on product information. So you lose a few people, maybe they were searching for something, they didn't find it, but some people remain and they go on to the next phase, which is to evaluate. You need to have products structured correctly. They might be looking for images at this point. They might be reading reviews of the product. They might be looking for things that relate to that product, accessories, whatnot. That whole phase of the buying journey is also all based on product content. And then, of course, some remain and they make the purchase and some drop off. So just kind of looking at that whole journey, everything is really, really based on product content. So if we want to create a great customer experience, we need to have good, valuable information. So we've taken kind of time to define what are the qualities of great information so that those customers have that good experience. First and foremost, it needs to be findable, of course. We've talked about that, but customers need to be able to find your products on Google, with on-site search. It's all based on high-quality product information. It needs to be correct because incorrect information loses your customers. They aren't confident, and that could lead to lost sales or expensive product returns. Information needs to be relevant. So in order for customers to make that purchase decision, the information really needs to be relevant to that customer. It needs to be consistent. I'll talk a little bit more about this, but there's a lot of different sales channels in which you're positioning your products to different types of customers. So it needs to be consistent whether they're on a mobile device or they go on your website or they're looking at your catalog. That information should be consistent across channels. And finally, it needs to be desirable. Consumers have something in mind when they come and look for a product. They want to get the correct information presented in their context, and they want to buy it. So it needs to be desirable with good images and rich media and all the things that they need in order to make that purchase decision. So we know what needs to happen, but what's the challenge? What's the problem? A product information system is going to bridge that gap between the data that's needed for the transactions and logistics, such as in an ERP system, the traditional system that kind of keep track of the item numbers and the bin numbers and where it is in the warehouse and the price and things like that. Customers aren't necessarily needing all of that information. They want that marketing, that rich media and the descriptions and the specifications and descriptions. They need all of that consumer-friendly information that often isn't found in an ERP system. So a PIM system would be something that would kind of hold on to a lot of that information. So another challenge within organizations is that all of that information is stored all over an organization. Information ends up in so many different places. So people have a hard time finding the right information, and it turns into this kind of complex mess that we at River call content spaghetti. It's just difficult when different departments, there might be Excel spreadsheets that contain some of the information, probably multiple versions of that Excel document. There's different file shares. There's manual processes, and it just creates this big, giant mess. And it can get pretty bad. I mentioned the different sales channels, but if you think about it, in today's omni-channel, multi-channel world, it's not just the web and e-commerce that we're talking about. Manufacturers specifically are working with their distributors and their resellers. They have mobile sites. There's social media now. There's marketplaces. And this can get pretty messy when you start to think about all that information that's kept within an organization, and then you have all the information within each of those silos, each of those departments. Different people are responsible for those different sales channels. So they often end up, they're not able to reuse that information. They kind of recreate information from scratch that might already exist within an organization. So what does it look like? What could the future state of that look like, or what would we like it to look like? It would look a lot more organized. There would be a foundation or a single system or a source of truth where all of that product marketing information can be kept in a single place. Perhaps it can connect to other systems or some of those spreadsheets or things that may already exist today. But this place would also allow users to come in and enrich that information with all of that great marketing and user-friendly, the images and all of the different things that a consumer needs, and connect it out into those different channels. So it's a much more organized and efficient way of working. And it also allows an organization to sell more products and sell them faster. So at InRiver, we also talk about this kind of 3-in-1 concept, where we've tagged PXM as a new acronym, the Product Experience Management. We all talk about the customer experience, but we believe there could be a great way to manage the product experience. And it isn't just the information and the data, but it's also the digital assets, the rich media, the videos. Maybe there's PDFs, there's all different kinds of documents that are needed for that some of that the consumer's looking for. That, in addition to the information, as well as being able to easily plan out all of the marketing activities that go along with the products. You're not just selling products, but you're putting them into campaigns, or you're creating relationships with those products. Essentially, it's about kind of combining these things together in order to not just have a foundation where all those products are stored, but a way to allow those products to tell their story and connect them into the different sales channels that we just talked about. So, I'm sure these are goals for every organization out there. Great, you want your customers to have a great experience. You want there to be operational efficiency within the organization. It just makes employees happier when there's, smoother processes to follow. And of course, the ultimate goal, which Chris mentioned, the increased revenue. All of which are things that, by having a centralized system, you can achieve, and what a lot of our customers tell us they have achieved. So just to conclude, to be in each customer's relevant context at each sales channel, we must create more and more content. And by having that solid foundation, such as a PIM system in place, it's much more easy to reuse content that you create, and then it's much easier to have a personalized experience for every single customer that's shopping. Back to you, Chris.
Great, thank you, Carol. I appreciate it. We're going to ask one more poll question, and it's related to personalization. To what extent are you currently personalizing the experience for your visitors?
And while everybody's answering that, again, my name is Justin Anovic, and I'm head of product strategy for Episerver. And we'll be talking through some details about personalization and optimization and things like that.
Okay, I think we're good though, so I'm going to just show the results. Hold on a second. And the majority said they were doing introductory, so that's good. So they've taken some steps on the personalization process. So I'll let you take it over, Justin.
Great. All right. So, there's a lot of interesting stats out, talking about personalization and other data. But, from a customer, from an individual perspective who's going to your website, or, that individual who's looking for more information, 74% of them get frustrated when the websites don't show them something contextual or personalized. And that may make sense, but it's the expectations are very high that online consumers expect to have something personalized and contextual to who they are and what their interests are. What the market is seeing, what we're seeing, we can talk about some other case studies in a future webinar, but the in-house marketers and individuals or companies who are doing this see an average of 19% uplift in sales. And that spans the range from the simple introductory type of things, from a personalization perspective, all the way through advanced. The more advanced, those numbers do go up dramatically. But on average, across those different spectrums, the uplift is about 19%. So there is a significant impact to doing personalization, and more importantly, doing personalization correctly. So today we'll talk about how personalization is a part of the overall optimization effort that most organizations have, and it needs to be done in conjunction with a few different pieces. And obviously you need to understand your business, and you need to be able to measure and understand the impact of the experiences that are occurring on the web. You need to explore what those consumer, those journeys are, and then tune to the goals that you have expectations for. And we have different customers that have different expectations, right? And it's not necessarily always about a revenue uplift. It's about awareness or brand identification. And it might be about the right product, but not necessarily buying it right then and there or ordering it. So there's different goals that definitely need to be measured as a part of that. And then certainly, the goal is about delivering the next best experience, whether it's a product or content or ad or whatever it may be. But using that and understanding how to optimize is really the crux of personalization. So, historically, from a marketer, merchandiser perspective, there's a lot of things that they would do that you guys probably do today if you're starting off, for those starting off, doing some baseline personalization. But there's a lot of hand tweaking that those individuals do, within the authoring, within the navigation, and all those things. And there's a little bit of machine aspect to it, the automated part to it. But companies are definitely moving more towards the automation, and so starting with some automatic landing pages based on what they know about the individual visiting, understanding the language intelligence and through search, and understanding some of those terms and aspects that are being talked about or searched for. But then again, the marketer and merchandiser today, even when doing these things from an automated perspective, are still doing a bunch of things on their own and kind of coming to their own conclusions. Where we're going is allowing the automation to help you and be a little bit more equal partner to the marketer or merchandiser doing things manually. And that can lend itself towards those automatic landing pages and search identification, but also get into service assistance. So who's the right organization, or what's the right phone number to use, what's the right contact method to use to product and content recommendations based on what we know about those individuals, optimize the experience based on what we know about them, and really get more towards the automated personalization or that individualization using the context that we know from their session or from them as an individual. But again, the goal is definitely to move more towards the automation and the machine part being an equal contributor to the individual that's kind of hand cranking and tweaking things manually, and doing those more so in conjunction certainly provides a better output. So just some examples from a personalization perspective. For those football, soccer fans out there, this is the A to Z site for the Ibrahimovic, who just launched it. But there's automatic landing pages based on who we know you are. We know that you're a man or woman. You're shopping for junior, whatever. Right? We want to make sure to tailor those landing pages, and it could be below the fold. It could be the entire page. But starting to do, identify which are the right components to use as a part of that page, and it could be content. It could be ads. It could be, it could be products. But it's really creating those automatic landing pages based on what we understand about that user. Going towards things like, identifying the right product and based on how they're browsing the site and what we know about them, maybe what they've bought before, but providing some recommended products that show up in the filter within here on the page, and you can provide the personalization through a variety of means. But this site is doing it through some of the filters on the left-hand side. To search, so we talked a lot about search earlier. certainly, that should, if most people are going to the search box, then that needs to be personalized. So the more that we know about that intent and their experience that they've had, or products that they've looked at, or whatever it may be, content they've looked at, we want to make sure to personalize a search. So my search should be different than your search based on the parameters that we have within there. And so that becomes an effective aspect to ensure that you're delivering the right results if they're going through the search, as opposed to browsing and doing things people did 10, 15 years ago. And then we talked about the service assistance piece. So based on little things like we know your location, we have a different contact option for you, to knowing who your account manager is and showing the information and personalizing it to that. But it could also be that based on the path that they took throughout their experience, and this goes back to optimizing the journey, but the path they took through the experience, we know that we actually want them to chat with us, or we want them to call us. We don't want to have them send an email, because they're high value at this moment based on what they've done. And we want to provide the right contact option. So this service assistance and personalization helps lend itself to making sure that you're providing the right contact method. If the goal is to keep them on the website, and we talked about goals earlier, if the goal is to keep them on the website and make sure that they don't change channels and call and leave the website, then we want to make sure to help and provide the right information there. So historically, data has been captured through a handful of areas to use in personalization, from marketing automation to, of course, the CMS and commerce sites, to PIM, as to what we talked about earlier. But we're moving towards and have gone is to make sure that we are using the right data that you have within your organization, and that data can sit almost anywhere. So there's a great data in the CRM potentially that we know, or ERP, or social information that people have put out there. Any data warehouse, financial platforms, whatever it may be. But the key is that in order to really truly get to the the highest level of maturity from a personalization perspective, the need to use this data is critical. And the more data that you can use within that personalization just makes that experience much richer and provides a better journey overall.
Great, thank you,
Chris?
Justin. I appreciate the time. So to wrap up and provide some key takeaways from each one of these areas, we have an enterprise search, and users are expecting good search. They've been taught by the big kings of the world, by Google and Amazon, that they should expect good search, and everybody needs to head there, and will leave if they can't find what they're looking for, and don't get the search that they expect. Great search can also drive conversions and improve revenue. On the PIM side, modern products are really complex. There's a lot of data involved, and making sure users can find the right information takes a lot of work. But getting there really makes a lot of sense. Organizing the data and proper structure is critical to making that happen. On the personalization side, personalization allows for catering the content to the user's interests, improves a relationship with the customer, which increases revenue and conversions. And technologies that continue to make personalization possible and easier to implement over time. So we're making strides in that area. So we're going to go to a question and answer period here. We've already got some questions that have been asked over the course of the webinar. Ask any more as you want to. The first one is for Jason. It's what search engines do you suggest looking into?
Great question. So there are a lot of search engines out there. There's a couple of, I'd start with sort of the open source possibilities out there. The two big kings on the open source side are Solr and Elasticsearch. And then beyond that, there's been other folks that have built on top of either one of those two. So of course, we've got to mention our own products. So we built a search engine called Bravo Squared Enterprise Search. You can go to bravosquared.com to learn more about that. And then there are a number of other commercial options that are easily found by searching for enterprise search or so on. But I think any examination of this process starts with those open source alternatives, Solr and Elasticsearch. There's another one called Open Search Server. And we've structured our product actually that we can plug any one of those into it. So
Great.
I think that answers it.
Great, thank you. The next question is for Carol. What sort of timeline is involved with implementing a PIM?
Well, the answer to that is that it depends. What a great answer. It really does depend, though. And there's different PIM systems out there that take anywhere from days, weeks, months to sometimes, over a year to implement. But at InRiver, I can only speak to InRiver. And I'd say at InRiver to implement and get up and running on our PIM is a couple of months, realistically. We work together with a great system integrator that can do some of the things that is needed in order to get up and running, building a good marketing model, and then after that, it's just kind of enhancements and changing over time as changes within the organization happen, or if new product categories are added, et cetera, things like that would obviously add on to that. But I think getting up and running, and on average, our customers can do it in a month or two.
Fantastic. The next question is for Jason as well. It says, what search engine has the best performance to handle 2,000 items and their attributes, including indexing, predictive search, etc.?
That's a very specific question, and I think it depends a little bit on, so these 2,000 attributes are products, I'm going to assume. I think well, any one of I've mentioned the Solar versus Elasticsearch versus OSS, any one of them can be tuned to have fantastic performance. And I wouldn't say, if you do a search for this out there, you're going to find all different kinds of benchmarks. I don't think there's any specific conclusion about which one is a better performer than another. It's kind of, the magic is in the implementation and the setup of the data. So I'm afraid I can't just give you a stock answer based upon the attributes that you've provided. What I would point to is you talk to a potential implementation partner and say, here's our scenario, please tell us how you might handle that. What search engine would you advise for this particular scenario and why? You might ask them, have you ever implemented other types of search engines? So find out if they're just pushing you towards one direction because that's all they know, or if they actually do say, well, we use this search engine for this scenario and a different engine for another scenario. So I'm afraid I wish I could kind of give you a straight answer on that one, but unfortunately it comes down to it depends.
Okay, great. The next question is for Jason as well. Are there any search engine preferences in the industry for B2B versus B2C?
No, I think that's a great question, but I think that the challenges are similar. One thing I will point out is that perhaps leaning more towards Elasticsearch is the word elastic is the key one there. With B2B products, you tend to have more attributes a lot of times than B2C. This isn't always the case, but it's maybe a little more common. And with lots of attributes comes a need for a lot of flexibility. I mean, that's where the word elastic comes in. Elasticsearch is designed so that you don't have to have as a straitjacket for what we call a search schema, where it defines all particular products, all the different attributes of a product. You're a little more flexible. So it's easier to change your implementation over time if you say add a new product attribute. Maybe you implemented a PIM and suddenly you have 10 more attributes that are available to you. That is easier to make that change with the Elasticsearch than it would be, say, with OSS or with Solar.
Great. Okay, the next question is for Justin. What industry trends to implementing personalization? What are industry trends to implementing personalization for B2B?
Well, one, I was starting to feel a little bit unloved with all the questions for Jason.
Trying to mix it up over here, Justin.
So the trends vary, honestly, depending upon the we do a lot of things through like a maturity model based on where an organization is and where they fit. So somebody who's kind of just getting online and maybe doing some e-cataloging and starting in that respect, personalization trends definitely focus around minimal personas to start with. So personas, would be the target audience that you have that that are your customers or those that you're bringing to your site. All the way through to somebody who's extremely mature, has a very broad and deep site and provides everything on there. The trends certainly point towards really extensive personalization from the use of all that data. So the more that can be used, as per my last slide, the better off, and you can really fine tune. You get to the point where your site is almost considerably different depending on a few slight variables, and that pattern and the path that is taken for an individual, whether through search or browsing, is considerably different. So it's really, starting off with the personas and focusing on that, moving towards, that use of data for sure. And we didn't really talk too much about, we talked a lot about, and I focused mainly on website and all that, but the personalization extending into other channels, from email and, social and to a certain extent through direct messages and things like that. So really extending it to that perspective, because B2B really has not taken advantage of those historically or up until recently. And, those might be in the middle of that maturity model.
Great. The next question is for Carol as well. How flexible is InRiver to import attribute data, for example, from PLM systems? Do you have connectors, interfaces available out of the box for some systems?
We do, and a lot of our customers have PLM systems in place, so they need to import a lot of that information. We have an open API, so InRiver is very easy to integrate to those PLM systems if we didn't have a pre-built connector, but we do have a couple, and you can check out our website if you want more information on that. I think part of our website has a section specifically on PLM systems and how a PIM can work together with a PLM system.
Yeah, and there's a slide coming up on contact information for both InRiver as well as Carol as well. So that'll be coming up here, and the slides will be available afterward as well. So the next question is for Justin. What is the best way to get started with personalization on your website?
Yeah, and good question. Started to address that with the personas, but that's really the first area that we work with our customers and our partners to help our customers and really identifying who those individuals are on your site, and focus what do you want to have them see and what their experience is like. And it really just comes down to a mapping exercise, and usually that starts with that left-hand side with a marketer, merchandiser, really focused on doing some hand tweaking to make sure that you're showing the right personalized information, and then you move into allowing the machine to capture those experiences and the paths and starting to incorporate some of the other data. But it's really to start using the persona that you probably have already identified and to move towards some of those types of mapping exercises. Right.
Okay. The next question is for Carol as well. How can localizations be handled in InRiver? We would have a need to localize data for multiple languages.
Yeah, no, that's another great question. InRiver, I didn't mention this, but our company was founded in Sweden. So, a huge challenge that businesses in Sweden face is as soon as they get large enough to expand outside of Sweden, they have all the other languages in Europe that they have to deal with. And that really, I didn't touch upon that in today's presentation, but that's another huge complexity. So We do. We have connectors to a couple of the larger translation service providers out there where all of that can be automated within InRiver. And again, even if you don't use a translation service, but you need to do that localization yourself, InRiver was built with that in mind. Selling products in multiple markets in multiple languages. So it's all built within the solution to make that whole process much easier.
Fantastic. I think we have time for one more, and I'm going to give it to Jason. Excuse me. How long does it take to typically? How long does it typically take to install a parametric search into a website?
Sure, great question. Obviously, there's a lot of give and take on that, and how long is a piece of string kind of thing. But I think a decent benchmark is 2 to 3 months for a parametric search into a typical website. It can obviously, if you're in a hurry, you could potentially do it in 4 or 6 weeks. I can't imagine getting it done in less than a month because part of the process involves a little bit of user experience design, technical discovery, and then finally the implementation. And what I would generally say is you go in with the sort of minimum viable product, which kind of a lot of people, that's the approach, but then plan on incremental improvement of that, particularly the tuning of the search, data enrichment, getting the data better so that you can maybe you support a couple of product lines with the first go round if it's like difficult to get them all in, and then add product lines as you go. There's different approaches. But as a rule of thumb, 2 to 3 months I think is a good timeline for a first implementation of parametric search.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. So to learn more, you would go to, for Bluebolt, you would go to blueboltsolutions.com/search. On the Episerver, you just go to episerver.com. On the InRiver, you would just go to inriver.com. For personal follow-up, I'm going to make sure that everybody gets a copy of this, but here's the email addresses for everybody. And then to learn more as well, we're going to send out an email in the next 24 to 48 hours with links to the webinar replay if you want to rewatch the webinar, as well as the presentation itself will be available on SlideShare, and we'll provide links to that as well. And then we're going to have upcoming webinars in each one of these topics for a deeper dive. Obviously, we just touched on why they were important and what they can do for you. This is more like a high-level sort of conversation. And the next more deeper analysis would be on each of these dates. So on September 13th at 1 p.m. Central, we're going to have a conversation about enterprise search. On September 20th, product information management, or PIM. And then on September 27th, we'll have a deeper dive into personalization. So I really appreciate everybody's time, and thank you so much for showing up, and have a great rest of the day.